All right. Hi, everybody. I'm John Lux. I'm the Executive Director of Film Florida, and welcome to another edition of Film Florida Friday. Film Florida Fridays are interactive conversations about current topics, initiatives, relationship building, and Florida's film, television, commercial, and digital media production industry. Today, we're talking virtual production. We have a couple of experts with us to talk about the rapid growth and evolution, the benefits, cost, future, and more. Our panelists all come from a little bit different perspectives, so I'm looking forward to the conversation. If you've been with us before, you know the routine. In a moment, our guests will introduce themselves. Then I'm going to ask a handful of questions to get things going. During that time, we're going to ask everybody to keep their microphones on mute to avoid background noise. After we've gotten through initial questions, we'll open it up to the audience for questions and conversation. At that time, please use the hand raising function so we can call on you. We do want this conversational and interactive, but we obviously don't want everyone talking at the same time. We're also going to ask everybody to keep their questions and comments brief in the interest of time and out of the fairness of others that want the opportunity. As I've mentioned the last few months, we're going to, if you want to use the chat box, please keep the conversation pertinent to the discussions. We have had a few conversations get off the rails, so we're going to try and keep that focused. Film Florida Fridays, as always, are free, but we hope you will consider donating $20.23 for our 2023 fundraising campaign. The donation link will be posted in our chat box throughout the discussion. You can also find that on our website. And with that, I want to introduce our guests. We have Lindsey from View, we have Andrea from Brandstar, and Steve from Green Slate Studios. So thank you all for being here. And Lindsey, let's start with you. Give us your background and tell us a little bit about View.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is Lindsey Sandrin. I'm the general manager for View Orlando. Personally, I have a weird background that brought me here. I grew up in the production industry. My dad and my uncle owned a production company here in Orlando. So I grew up on set. I'm sure there are people on this call that probably have stories of me on set. Graduated college and moved back to Orlando, started working in interactive advertising company. So I was in the technology space for about 5 years. And then from there moved into economic development and went to the Orlando Economic Partnership for almost 8 years, where I ran the Orlando Film Commission, also helped start the Orlando Tech Council, or Orlando Tech Community now, did business development, ran events, all kinds of things for them. In that job, I helped View expand from Tampa to Orlando. And then I said, take me with you. And here I am. So it's really the place where my production and technology and business development background kind of all come together at a point. I admittedly had been looking for a job for a few years, not knowing what I wanted to do, like when I grow up. And I walked into View and it hit me like a ton of bricks. So I just knew. So that's me. View, we are a network of virtual production studios. Our mission is to create the largest network of studios across the globe. I think we're there right now. We have 4 physical studios, Tampa, Nashville, Vegas, and Orlando, that are ours. We also have partner studios that are technically part of our network as well. So not only do we host and rent out our own stages, but we help people build their own stages. We do mobile solutions on set, kind of anywhere, and really just help people solve problems that they can't solve otherwise with traditional production, among other things that I think we're going to get into later.
Excellent. Thank you, Lindsey. Andrea, you're up.
Great. Good morning, everyone. I'm the president of Brandstar Studios. If there's anyone on this call that is a Saluki from Illinois, that's where I went to school, moved down to Florida back in 2005. So I've literally grown up in the production business. I've been at Brandstar for 15 years, literally held what feels like every position in the company, from being a PA to an associate producer, to running a marketing team, to business development, to food styling. It doesn't matter. We have a whatever it takes attitude. So titles mean nothing to us when it comes to Brandstar, because everybody just jumps in and it's very collaborative in that nature. So that's a little bit about my background, and I'll go into a little bit more about Brandstar when that comes up.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Andrea. And Steve, finally from you.
Hey everybody, I'm Steve Martin from Green Slate Studios. A little background on me is that I started a production company literally right out of college, and that was 30 plus years ago. So all the gray hair is kind of telling you a little bit about how long I've been at this racket. But in 2010, we opened Green Slate Studios as a separate facility for not only our production company, but for a lot of other production companies who didn't have studio facilities. And it's been pretty successful for us over the years. About a year ago, we started kind of thinking about the idea of virtual production and what would be involved in that. And then, one thing led to another. And everybody else is doing it obviously on with LED volumes, and we try to figure out a way to pull it off with our existing facility, which of course is a green screen. And my battery is running low for some reason on this, so hopefully we can get that fixed in a hurry. I don't know what happened to my laptop here, but power supply is acting up a little bit weird. But anyways, you can see I'm on a green screen right here, and we can switch back and forth between that view and the view that I'm on. So that's what we do here at Green Slate, is we provide studio solutions for production companies. And that's we'll get into it, I guess, more detail a little bit later.
Excellent. Thanks, Steve. Andrea, let's go back over to you. Let's start with kind of just the general introduction to virtual production and the benefits. Give us a little bit of the history of virtual production.
Yeah, so for us, specifically at Brandstar, I'll give a little evolution of how it came about. So our founder, Mark Alfieri, he loves The Mandalorian with his daughter, watching that. Literally was binge watching it on a weekend, trying to understand how it was produced, because that's what we do. We're always looking at how our things produced. Couldn't find very many videos out there. And so just decided to take a leap and say, let's go all in on it. Let's get a volume, let's have it manufactured. Let's create a space where we can all test and play and learn, because the way that we see it is that you learn typically by making mistakes. And so why don't we just take that risk and go ahead and do that? So virtual production in and of itself is a set of tools. So to Steve's point, even on the green screen side of things, there's still tools that cause virtual production to take place and to happen, whether it's in-camera visual effects, whether it's on a green screen, compositing, but ultimately it's about seeing the final result real time. And so oftentimes people think that you need to do some extensive environment. That's a wonderful way to utilize virtual production, but you can also use it by just simply having a backdrop on an LED volume and being able to utilize the real-time rendering to make changes live on set. And there's a lot of benefits to it, from the actors feeling immersed into the experience, to the creatives being able to see what they're going to see in their final result, to even the simplest things as far as eye lines, so that people understand what they're looking at and it actually matches up to reality. So that's kind of just a small little tidbit of what it really is.
Well, and Lindsey, I want to jump over to you, because View kind of was a pioneer in the virtual production space. I know this was a little bit before your time at View, but give us a background on how and why View got involved with virtual production.
Sure. So our president and CEO started a traditional commercial production company in Tampa, and it had grown and was very successful, still is. And the pandemic hit. I always say that View's a pandemic baby. It's my little joke. Pandemic hit, and essentially they knew they needed to pivot. And our DP at the time, he was the DP, he's now our VP of Research and Development, Alvin, said, guys, I think we can do this virtual production thing. The Mandalorian was out, and I think the behind the scenes had just hit. And essentially everything kind of just fell in place ridiculously well, considering it was the pandemic. They were able to secure space in a mall in Tampa, and had found a supply chain to China with certain panels. Remember all the shipping containers that were hanging out in the ocean that I know Susan is on this call, she can see from her house in California. So yeah, we were able to kind of figure out, navigate that situation. We had patents pending on ceiling panels and technology. And then the first client, I think, was Mercedes. So from there on the trajectory, it helped that the Super Bowl was in Tampa that year. So there's a Today Show spot on us. And then just with the limitations of everything during the pandemic, virtual production, I think virtual production would have gotten where it is anyways, but it just really accelerated it, made it safer, easier, I'm going to say better in a lot of circumstances for people to be able to produce content. So now we're separated from that production company. We're officially just View for almost 2 years now, and not looking back. So,
well, and all three of you, I want to get an answer from you on this one, because virtual production is not the only thing you do. So this is an enhancement of what you guys already do. So Andrea, start with you. Talk about how this is another tool in the toolbox that you're able to provide holistic approaches with clients.
Absolutely. So we've been doing productions for about 30 years, and using practical forms of production. So we produce original content for Brandstar. So a lot of branded entertainment content, about 300 to 400 long form shows a year. For the most part of our existence, we have just been a fulfillment studio for our own shows, not even open to the public until the participants that we work with on our TV shows started asking for more things. What other things can you produce for us? So that's when we said, wow, what an idea. Why don't we actually produce content for other people that need it outside of our own original shows? So for us, it's really about utilizing virtual production as just another tool. Yes, it is an evolution in the business. I don't think we'll ever go back. I think it's only going to keep advancing forward. But it's something that you use no different than you would any other tool. Whatever the creative is, if there's a need to use virtual production, you use it. If there isn't, you don't force it. So Brandstar has just taken an approach of, let's be one of the first ones in it so that we can learn, and then we're all about sharing. So we just want to share best practices, collaborate with other folks like Lindsey and Steve, or pretty much it's a community and it's an industry, and we're all learning together, and the advancements happen so fast that there's more work than any of us could possibly service at this point right now. So it's, why not, let's do it all together.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, Lindsey, I want to jump over to you. You alluded to Diamond View and the relationship that your two companies have. Talk about that in terms of being able to be both a studio that people just rent out and execute versus being able to work creatively with, your partners there.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we're completely separate companies now. We do partner as needed and when it makes sense. In terms of the services that we offer, my example is there's two extremes. There's Bob and his widget. Bob has this widget and maybe a few dollars, and he wants to make a video. And he knows nothing. He has no production team. He has no creative team. He knows nothing other than he wants a video of this. We can help Bob soup to nuts, right, with everything. Or we can have companies come in that say, hey, we've got the creative team, we've got the production team, we have the operators that can operate your system. We need you to turn the lights on, make sure this thing works. And we got it from here. Awesome. Love that. We help both of those situations, and then every shade of gray in between. So we do have partners like Diamond View and additional trusted production partners that we can pull in at any time in any of our stages. And we really work with the local industry and local teams as well to help crew up as needed, just based on the production. So just really depends on what the client needs. But yeah, we're basically, like I said, here to solve problems and make people's lives easier, and whatever that means for them.
And then Steve, throwing that same thing down to you. I mean, as you mentioned, you have your own production company, you have Green Slate, and now this is another element of Green Slate. Talk about how all of these things kind of come together and work with each other to help give clients what they need.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we started the production company, it's Omni Productions back in 1989, and we did mostly corporate and commercial work and things like that. In 2010, we decided in the middle of a recession to drop a whole bunch of money into building out a studio. But we wanted it to be different. There's a really bright line between Omni and Green Slate. Green Slate doesn't tell stories. Green Slate doesn't produce anything. Green Slate is a facility, and it's designed to be a facility for production companies. Omni being one of the production companies, but I think there's more people that use Green Slate than there are, more outside production companies use Green Slate than Omni uses Green Slate, to give you some perspective here. As for the virtual component of it, we started that about a year ago. We started kind of thinking about it, and then really got into it back in, I want to say September, October, just started honestly dabbling. And we just kept turning over the next poker card and the next poker card, and writing another check and writing another big check and then writing a bigger check. And before you know it, we were getting to that point where it was kind of set up. Our challenge, like I'm sure everybody who is thinking about this virtual production thing, was getting information. This is a bleeding edge technology where there's no manuals, there's no standard operating procedure. You just have to figure it out. And there's an enormous amount of engineering. And in our case, it's even more rare because we don't have volumes. As you can see, I'm in a green screen studio here, and yet we're pulling it off in real time with tracking and movement and all of that stuff as well, which is just a little bit different. I think, you can see, him moving the camera around a little bit in the background tracking. So it's been a weird thing for us, but like Andrea and Lindsey have talked about, there's kind of like a separation of production versus facility, because a lot of people want to come in here. They want to use, exactly like Lindsey said, they want to use their own cameras, because quite frankly, that's how they make their money. They want to use their own crew. They want to use their own creative. They want to use their everything. They just need somebody to kind of turn on the lights, make sure that the virtual component works, that cameras and lenses and everything are calibrated properly, and away they go. And in all fairness, we're still pretty new at this whole virtual thing. Hey, look, I got another camera. We're still pretty new at this. We literally just started the whole process 6-8 months ago in earnest. And I would just say that, we're learning more every single day. Like this second camera thing is a whole new piece of the puzzle here that I have. This is our first time actually testing and making that work. So pretty excited about that.
Looking good, Steve.
Thank you.
Well, Steve, I mean, is pretty much, I venture to guess that just about everybody on this Zoom is familiar with the LED volume style of virtual production, but probably pretty few are familiar with it being green screen. They didn't know that was available. Sure. So nerd out a little bit for us and just tell us a little bit about the technical side
Sure.
of the green screen real-time virtual production.
Yeah, well, the good part about this is that what we're doing here isn't that much different. The only difference is that the lens isn't capturing the optical image. It's being done through a separate piece of equipment. But just like everybody else who does virtual production, you really got a couple of key pillars. The first one is you have to have the environment. So in this case, I'm in a green screen, but we've created this little office set. We've got our logo on the wall, and that's all done in Unreal Engine. This particular set that you're seeing here was purchased on the Unreal Marketplace, relatively inexpensive. I don't know exactly how much it was, $300 or $400, maybe $500, and then we altered it by adding the placard and the logo and things like that. So that's not any different than what you would see in any other kind of production. The second part is the tracking. Just like everybody else, you've got a tracking system that allows the camera movement to relate to the background. That's tied into Unreal Engine. Again, it's pretty much the same. The only thing that's really different here is that we use a Blackmagic Ultimate 8K box that does all of the keying, and it does it in real time. And unlike the keyer that's built into to Unreal Engine, this thing is pretty good in terms of shadows and just looking very natural and very real. It'll project shadows on the floor as I walk around and things like that. And you can do some other really cool things. I'll give you an example. Like if I walked back here, I can go behind the wall here. Well, as you can see, there's no wall here. If you cut to the green screen there, Greg, there's nothing here. It's all done in the inside of the keyer in Ultimate. So there's some neat effects, and also the fact that you can see I got right up against that green screen with no real concerns about being too close to the panels or stuff like that. So there's a couple of interesting little nuances that make green screen different, including the fact that I can't wear green. So I couldn't do the Mandalorian because Grogu would disappear on me.
Right. So now I'm going to ask each of you this one. Virtual production capabilities have shifted. I mean, and I say this as if we've been doing this for 20 years. I mean, it's been like 2 years, and things have really advanced quite a bit. Lindsey, from the View side, what advances have you seen, or what changes have you seen just in the short period of time that you've been with View?
Yeah, I mean, when we started, we really were there. Carrie Sanders in the Today Show clip says that we play, because it's just a really good example, says that one of a handful of studios like this in the world. At the time we were. And now I'll use Bob and his widget again. If Bob wanted to go buy all this equipment and set it up in his garage, he could have his own, right? There, I feel like everybody is getting one now. It's really, the secret to it is really the team and the technology and the equipment that you have, and how you can support productions. I think in terms of advancing technologies, I mean, everything changes so quickly. By the time you buy something and get it in your hands, there's already something new to purchase. Now, I will say, even with that, our Tampa studio, which was built in 2020, they're the same panels from 2020. And they work really well. So just because there's something newer out there and better, and there's a smaller pixel pitch and things like that, doesn't mean that you necessarily need it in order to have a fantastic experience in production. And in terms of, our business and how we're evolving and moving forward as well, we just announced at NAB a suite of virtual production software where it essentially helps people build their production. There's crazy, I don't even understand it, generative AI backgrounds. It's crazy. And things of that nature to really help enhance and set up your production kind of from the get-go, from the beginning through to the very end. So there's always a way to evolve and move forward, just like technology. But again, just because there's something newer and shinier and better out there in terms of equipment doesn't mean that you need that for your production. I think that's one thing that we've really tried to, and I'm sure everybody on this call has really tried to get through to people when they talk to potential clients, is that you don't need a Mandalorian-sized budget to do virtual production. You really don't. There are ways you can do it that way. That would be really fun. But trying to make it accessible to everybody has been a goal too. So I think there are some advancements that help that. Yeah, it's just been a really fun ride. So.
And Andrea, over to you. Like, how have things evolved just in the time that Brandstar's been doing things?
Yeah, well, I echo what Lindsey said as well. Everything is evolving on a daily, weekly basis. And I would say the advancement for us is in the smaller pixel pitch. So you don't have to have this massive space if you leverage the technology appropriately. So for us, when we had invested in a 1.9 pixel pitch, which all that means is that there's smaller pixels that are closer together. So your subject can get closer to the wall, your camera can get closer to the wall without it moiraying. So that was a big advancement for us that allowed us to make that decision, because we do have a smaller space. It's not as big as the Mandalorian style, although we do have some exciting news to share about a bigger space. Another thing that we have been recently testing is our ceiling panels. So we have 3 sets of ceiling panels that are motorized so that you can move them accordingly, so that you can put in your practical lights. But one of the cool things that we're working with right now is the see-through ceiling panels, so that you're able then to allow any kind of heat to come through them, or you're able to put practical lights above and around them to shine through. So again, we really have a playground to play and test. So we're testing them first so that then we can decide how we want to recommend for our clients moving forward.
Excellent. Now, Lindsey, we talked about Tampa, Orlando, Nashville, Vegas for you. I've been to the Tampa and the Orlando ones, and they're very different studios. Tell us a little bit about the size and specs of each of the studios, specifically Orlando and Tampa, but also touch on Nashville and Vegas.
Sure. So Tampa was the first one, as I mentioned. It's about 16 feet tall and 100 feet long in a circle. And that's the one in the mall in Tampa. Nashville was second. It was built in March of 2022, or opened March of 2022. It's about 19 feet tall and 130-ish feet long, shaped like a J. So from Tampa to Nashville is where we did the J shape. So you still get that kind of immersive corner of the J, as we say, but you also get a nice long flat as well that you can play in, it just gives more flexibility. Vegas opened in April of 2022, so just a month after Nashville. Also shaped like a J. It's about 19 feet tall and 140 feet long. And then Orlando was September of 2022. We opened, and we are 26 feet tall and 155 feet long. So we're the biggest. And we all have our own strange little niches that came essentially like completely not from us, just by the markets that we're in. And we intentionally chose commercial markets, so not, a movie markets, because commercials are more fun, in my opinion. They're more fun, but yeah, just to be a bit more flexible and go into these markets that we knew, have strong commercial work and really could flourish there.
And now cost is obviously a discussion when it comes to virtual production. And, we've all been there, like, hey, how much does it cost to make a video? So I'm not going to say like, how much does it cost to do virtual production? But Lindsey, let's start with you though. Talk ranges. Like, when somebody comes in, what are the elements that cause a virtual production to be less expensive versus one that would be really out of control cost-wise?
Sure. I mean, it really depends on what they need. I mean, from us, we can do a week-long rental on location. We just did a 2-day rental on location at the Brightline station last week. A smaller wall, it's more flexible for them. I mean, it's, there's that scenario. You can also come in to any of our stages for any amount of time you need. I think Nashville had someone come in for an hour at one time, film a quick little video for social media, and they were out. And that's all they needed. So it really depends on the project. And we try with every project to look at it from top to bottom. And, people will come in and think that they know, what's going to work best for them, but they've never done virtual production before. So we try really hard to help them as much as possible, go through the entire script, go through the process, say, okay, we think for this, you can probably get these 3 scenes done in a day because of X, Y, and Z. Typically utilizing plates, which stills or videos, versus the Unreal Engine is going to be easier. a cheaper way of doing things. But then again, if you're building a whole, if you're building out a whole forest on the stage with a plate, then you're going to have a very large art budget, right? So it all depends on how we can kind of flex the production, what shots they need, how we can, and all of that stuff. So we try and help people as much as we can with their budget and say, okay, if you have a lower budget, here are some tips and tricks for you to do that. If your budget is unlimited, then go for it and have fun, and we can do that too.
And Andrea, I want to, similar question to you. When somebody comes and says, we want to do this, what are the things that you guys spend time with them to help them understand this is what's going to cost you more money when you're doing a virtual production versus this is pretty much the same as a regular production. You don't have to worry too much from a budget standpoint. What are those kind of key points that jump out to you all when you're looking at a script or an outline for a project?
Well, that's always the magic question, right? What is the cost? And it always goes back to what is the creative? What are you trying to execute? And so we're always looking at how we can value engineer things, right? And so that's why it starts with what is the creative? Let's look at what is your shot list, break that down, because it might not make sense for virtual production from a cost standpoint in some cases. Now, and I'll give you an example. We have the humane shelter right across the street from us. So if you had something that was filming in a humane shelter, don't rebuild it. If you could go over right there and just do it, right? But if you have something that has multiple locations that would take days to film or weeks to film, then that's an obvious. And then also too, if you can buy already built assets and customize them and make tweaks to them, there's also savings and efficiency there. So I know people want a range because they want to have an idea of what it is to see if it's attainable or not.
Right.
And I would say you can execute on a virtual production anywhere from $10,000 up. And we'll utilize, we have a stage at Lynn University. It's actually a really cool stage. It's an LED floor as well. And it's a small space, but if we have the ability to film something there, we can do that more cost affordable because it's at our university partner. We also have another partner stage that's about 5 miles from us, right around the corner here. And we will leverage our relationship with the stage that we built there based on availability. So it's also availability. If we have 2 days open and somebody wants to do something, then let's make it happen and let's figure out how we can meet you where you're at with your budget.
Yeah. And Steve, as you and I have talked, you've come at this a little bit different perspective where you're really trying to focus on the productions that are really cost conscious or budget challenged, sometimes as we refer to them. Talk about how you have, and I know you're still in a little bit of the R&D, but what are you finding are the things that drive cost from your perspective on the virtual production?
Sure. Exactly like Andrea and Lindsey said, I think the biggest thing that's going to drive cost is the creative, and specifically the environment that the virtual production is living in. Whether it's Unreal Engine or if it's a plate. If it's a plate, it's a lot easier. It's basically what we've been doing here since 2010, since we built out Green Slate. Just shooting on a plate, and whether it's done in composite post or done in real time using the Ultimat, that's the easiest approach, and that's really affordable. Depending on just the number of different shots and plates and things like that, and lighting cues that you have to manage to make those plates look right. But for Unreal Engine, obviously the big thing is, can you buy something that's already made, like the set that I'm in? And if so, boy, that puts you way ahead of the game, and you just have to wade through the pages and pages and pages of what's out there on the Unreal Marketplace and other sources as well to see if something already exists that will suit your needs. If not, then you got to custom make something, and that's where most of the money is going to get spent, to be blunt. As for what we're doing here at Green Slate in terms of cost, it's going to vary, obviously, depending on things, but what we are anticipating, and again, we're still relatively new at this. Like you said, we've just wrapped up R&D for kind of getting launched, and we're still learning things as we go. We think that most of the productions that will happen here at Green Slate will be in the $5,000 to $10,000 range for a prep day plus a shoot day, including all of the virtual components. Now, obviously, that doesn't include whatever crew that they need and and things like that. So that's kind of a range to play in, but it just varies. That typical, hey, how much does it cost to make a video? Like you said, John, that's always the scariest proposition because you don't have enough information to really tell people what it's going to cost until you have a script, until you have a shot list, until you have a scene list, until you see what lighting is going to look like and everything else. So, but that's a rough range of where we see it kind of happening here.
And if I can, John, really quickly, I just want to say one thing. I think, we've all said we're all new at this. This is still new. It's ever evolving, right? And of course, our clients, I think I can speak for us all, are also new to this. There's a huge learning curve in getting them on board. One of the hardest things that we found is we offer up our services. Have us on your initial creative calls, have us in your ideating sessions internally. And we know traditionally agencies and clients don't want outsiders in those calls. They don't want to share their creative ideas. They want to give you the minimal information that you need in order to move forward. And that has been one of the hardest things to understand and trust us that we truly want to help you from beginning to end. Have us on those calls. If you don't move forward with virtual production, I'm not going to charge you for 2 hours of our time to sit on 2 calls. The worst case, I say this, one of the worst case scenarios I can imagine is, oftentimes it's us production in terms of hiring hierarchy and projects, it's us production company, agency, client, right? Most of the time we're given storyboards and they say, okay, here are storyboards, move forward. We're like, oh, awesome. Love these. This is so great. There are a couple of things that probably need to be tweaked in order to move forward with virtual production and make it as successful as possible and as easy as possible for you. Which means the storyboards might need to get redone, which means they then need to be reapproved. I hate that. I don't ever want that to happen to anybody because then virtual production just becomes a pain in people's butts. And I don't want that. So all that to say, what we're saying with, it all depends on the creative. I urge people to bring us in as early as possible. All of us on this call, all of us in the industry, we're just here to help you and make sure that virtual production works as well as it can for any project that comes in. So that's all. Yeah,
and I'll jump in also as well, just to Lindsay's point. About 6 months ago, we were approached by a client who wanted, on the production side, on Omni next door, who wanted us to do a project, and they wanted it done in an LED volume because the size of this space wasn't going to work for them. And we actually we're trying to partner up with Lindsay over at View. It just that client didn't work out. The project didn't happen. But it's a very collaborative community, I think, and we're all kind of in the same boat. We're all learning and we're all trying to help each other. Obviously, we have a business to run and we want to do the best we can to try to secure projects. But it's not the cutthroat that you might think it is. I don't know if anybody thinks that or not, but it's not.
And just for those in the audience, we're wrapping up our scripted questions here. So if you have questions, just be ready. We're going to get to those in just a second. Andrea, I want to jump over to you. Talk about pitfalls. Like, what's kind of, are you seeing like there's a common mistake when a client comes to you or a producer comes to you and you're just kind of seeing consistent that they keep making this kind of same mistake when it comes to virtual production?
I guess the one pitfall, all right, so the common pitfall would be preparation. And not allowing for that extra time, because remember, it's flipping traditional production on its head. It's putting your post into pre. And the more planning and more prep that you do, the better your production is going to be. And that goes with any production, right? But it's being able to have that time to test the environments. It's being able to have that time to add your practical elements and your practical lighting to make sure that you get it right. Making sure that the tech is up to speed so that your gen lock is set properly. It's just those little nuances that make a big difference, that if it halts your production, time is money. And that's where I've seen the most pitfalls there.
Yeah. Lindsay, without naming names, do you want to give us any horror stories?
I really don't have any horror stories. No, I don't.
A horror film?
What?
Maybe a horror film?
No, not here yet. That would be super fun though. But no, I think in addition, I'm just gonna kind of bounce off of what Andrea said. In addition to preparation, I want to say, come into it. I think everybody on set needs to come into it interested in learning and growing. I don't have horror stories, but we all know that some people in this industry have egos and they think they know everything. And I mean, I can't imagine anyone with that. We've had some incidences where, we have people on the floor guiding, okay, the gen lock cables, the lighting, you don't want light spill on the LEDs, all of that. Like, we're constantly trying to help people. And we have had a couple of times where people just completely ignore us. They keep pulling the cables, keep changing things around, which only takes up more time on their end. So I just say, I think it's really good. And honestly, 99% of our clients have done this and they're wonderful. Come in. And it's actually all of our clients are fine. It's normally just, there's been maybe one or two people total that have come in with that attitude, but it just lengthens the time of everything. It makes it more complicated on set. So just be open.
Good. All right, everybody, if you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand. I'm going to start with a question from the chat box. And we'll throw this over to Andrea to start. It says, when a client walks into the virtual stage, are they still bringing their own equipment, i.e. lights, grip, to light the real elements, or do these stages offer equipment as to eliminate the need to bring in loads of gear from off-site and to be able to film at the virtual stage? Also, is there a learning curve for a DP who has never shot on a virtual stage before? Andrea?
All right, this is a great question. Because our stage is a purpose-built stage. So we are not just a box, right? So we do have all the equipment necessary in-house to pull off any form of production. However, it goes back to what the need is. So we're agnostic. If you want to use what we have, we can do a turnkey solution to help you. If you want to bring in your own gear, bring in your own gear. We have crew. If you want to bring in your own, we're agnostic. We just want to help get the best result. As far as, I love the fact that you asked about a learning curve from a DP perspective. Absolutely. We have a DP that we love dearly too, that's out of LA, that we bring in a lot for our filming. We actually just wrapped elevator pitch yesterday. He's actually still here. He's a pro in the virtual production space. So I would recommend pairing you with somebody that is an expert in it. And so that you can learn some of the techniques. But it just comes to have a play date, jump in, shadow, learn. It doesn't take a lot to learn, because once you get on set, you'll realize, wow, I know this already. It's just the technique done a little bit differently.
Good. Lindsay, another question from the chat. It says, I'm old school with major live theater and TV background. What does shooting a plate mean?
A plate just refers to a static image or video. So it's not something that is not created in the gaming engine that we use, Unreal. So, I mean, we literally will pull images off of Google and just throw them up on the LEDs for demos, or even for a shoot we did one time. It took like 5 minutes. So that's essentially what a plate is. Just a video or image. You can source it from the internet. You can shoot it yourself, whatever you want to do. That's essentially what a plate is.
Or for driving scenes, you could also shoot your own plate in the field and then put it on the volume to utilize, and then use the volume for your lighting as well for reflections.
Lindsay, if you're using just still photography off of the internet or something you film, what type of resolutions are needed to deal with the large size of the screen?
Yeah, it depends on the section that you're filming in, really. If you're only using a small portion of it, then it's going to be smaller. I will say the size of this volume, Photoshop and Illustrator doesn't make a file that size, so we have to upscale everything anyways. So it really just depends on essentially the area that you're filming. For video, 4K is totally fine most of the time. And yeah, the resolution, it depends on how tight the shot is, how wide the shot is, all of that. It just needs to be relatively high res, and we can make it work most of the time.
Makes sense. Makes sense. All right, Christy, I am going to add you to the spotlight so we can see you, and go ahead and ask your question.
Great, thank you. So speaking of people that have kind of become experts in this realm, have you seen, is this being built into curriculum at schools? Is it becoming a regular part of coursework? Or like for people that are like currently going to school, if they're interested in going to this realm, what would you suggest? Like they get experience on set? So generally, how do people get into that kind of expert role?
Yeah, well, I'll take that one to start. So for example, Lynn University, we put a stage there. We work very closely with the students at Lynn. They'll come into our stage. We'll work with them on their stage. We're building one at FAU as well. And so they're starting to build that into their curriculum. Also, we work with the professors. And then we're bringing on another university as well that is going to build it into the curriculum. There's also another virtual production curriculum called CG Pro. They're awesome. We love them. And they are also plugging their curriculum into some other universities to help them with their students as well. So
Yeah.
it's definitely coming to the forefront. It has to.
Yeah,
well, Lindsey, talk a little bit about the relationship View has at the University of Tampa.
Yeah, so we have University of Tampa and Florida Southern, and we've built one at UF. We have a number of educational partners that we work with, and it's all coming to the forefront essentially. At Full Sail locally, I know Lori just posted that, also has their own volume, and they're fantastic as well. I think in terms of, if someone's looking to get into this and isn't in college, what do they need to know? Of course, it depends on the aspect that you're looking to get into. I don't know how to program in Unreal. I don't know that. But I do have a film background. And so I know film and people skills, basically, all that stuff. So there's certain things that you can definitely learn. I think if you're looking to get into the operation side of things and operate a stage and really understand the technical aspect of it, you definitely need the Unreal gaming engine experience and film experience. Those are two things that you absolutely must have in order to really be successful in the operator sense.
Right. Okay. I want to, Lisa, before I go to you, I'm going to bring down Caleb. Caleb, are you ready for us here? So here's a kind of a funny story. So Caleb works for Advent Health, who is also a member of Film Florida, just like all three of these others, which, by the way, is worth noting. And by kind of my screwing up on our end, I wanted to have Advent Health with us on this panel because they also have an LED volume, and wires got crossed a little bit and we weren't able to make that work. But I wanted to have Caleb on. So Caleb, can you tell us, because obviously most people probably hear Advent Health, why do you have an LED volume? But tell us about the setup you guys have there, what you have and what it's used for, and just so people know what else is available here in Central Florida from your perspective.
Sure, thanks, John. So hi, everybody. I'm Caleb Mixon. I'm the film studio manager here at our new studio here at Advent Health Corporate. We're based here in Maitland, just north of Orlando. And a lot of what this has transpired from is similar to what was said earlier with my director, Chris Bolander, who couldn't be on this call, but definitely helped pioneer with the company out of pandemic conditions, the need for communication to our the stakeholders, the employees, the staff, the executives, and even for film and commercial work that we do. So that started transpiring to more of a in-house agency model and kind of like working, like saying, hey, we can do more of this as a company. And so that's what's transpiring now. And we have 2 studios that are back to back. They have their own control rooms. I'm in the film studio now, and of course I'm set up for like a little, reveal and walk and talk like we've all seen. But I'll do that in a little bit. But the film studio see here, we shot this. We have a Red Raptor and we shoot in 8K most of the time, and then we'll scale down and punch in where needed. We typically have a 1 to 2 camera setup in our film studio, sometimes 3. We have 3 Panasonic Vericams, and everything's attached with 12G, which means we can sustain a 4K pipeline all the way to edit. So we have a film crew here too that are filmmakers and editors, and we try to do as much as we can to be bespoke with a lot of the stuff that we use here in healthcare. And it can range, like to answer your question on what we actually do with the studios, it ranges from executives basically doing a little update with everybody through the company, but not just C-suite. We also do a lot with online videos and education, and healthcare stories are a big thing that we're trying to push, especially on the film side. And then the broadcast studio, which is the larger wall that I'll talk about in a minute, is more for live events such as this. Actually, an executive can step over there and basically talk to 200 people all at once with virtual backgrounds, and using the wall as basically a multi-screen to actually see everybody and their presentation and for education purposes, and in healthcare as well. So a lot of stories to be told and a lot of things that we're just now starting to branch out in. We don't have Unreal yet. That'll be upcoming in the coming months. We're training some of our team on that now. So like everything that's been said before, we're new to this, but it's an exciting time in the film industry. And whether it's through Advent Health in a healthcare institution, which I think we're the only ones in the state, if not the country, of a healthcare company that actually has these studios. It's so rewarding and easier to plan and produce inside a studio the stories that you want to tell, and really create those moments when you can save time and money on locations and things like that, which comes into play here. But a few tech specs real quick. So we don't have Unreal, but everything we do shoot our background plates with either stills or the cameras I mentioned for different angles as well. And the wall behind me is it's about 5K. And we use Ruby 2.3 pixel pitch in this one. And then we have amber panels next door on the larger wall that are about 1.5. And they both work really, really well for what we do. Behind me, we have about 10 feet by 36 feet. And then next door, our broadcast studio is about 65 feet and 10 feet. And they're just slightly curved walls. We don't have the full volume with ceiling, but it's worked out really well. And if I have time, I'll just move this back and we'll do a little reveal. Because it's fun to do this stuff, right? So there is a mannequin here. This is the Biebs because of his hairdo.
Sure.
And we even give him a badge too. Check it out.
I like that he has a security badge.
Yes.
He's official, right?
Yeah.
He's got to fit in there. So we got the sky panel lightings and stuff like that, but let's back it up. You can see some of like the setup, multicam there. Get a little bit of that there. You can see some of the angles. Anyway, just wanted to, at least one of us, to kind of just do this reveal and stuff, and then similar to what Green Slate did and everything. So this is Advent Health. This is the film side. I'd show you the broadcast side, but they're actually filming something over there next door. But thank you, John, for the time and for the introduction here. Nice to meet you guys.
Absolutely, Caleb. And Caleb, don't be afraid to put any contact information in the chat box if you want people to learn more or contact you or anything like that. So I appreciate you guys being a member and appreciate the last minute having you on like this. This was great. Thank you.
Does the mannequin have an email?
No, but that's a good idea. That's a great idea.
Well,
He
What's his name?
up to chat GPT.
Yeah, well, Steve's mannequin has a Facebook account, so we're friends with him now. Yeah,
Okay, now we're
Oh, nice.
talking.
There you go.
We went from virtual production to mannequins. This is awesome.
Yes, I'm telling you, the mannequin is a great stand-in. It doesn't talk back. It's just ready whenever you need them.
Perfect.
yes,
You can change their hair.
perfect. Okay, so Lisa Mills, I saw you had a question, but your hand is down. So if you had to run, I apologize. But if you still have your question, Lisa, go ahead and put your hand up, and we'll get you down here. In the meantime, a quick question from the online image perspective. How are things being licensed? Lindsay, how do you guys handle licensing if you're just grabbing images?
Sure. So it really depends on the client's needs, right? So we have had clients come in and say that they need full licensing control, and I'm not a legal person either, so I'm probably going to say something wrong, but they need full rights, full licensing for the background. If we're just pulling an image from online, that's different. Just in that we know we're not going to have full licensing rights to that likely unless we're doing it ourselves, right? So if someone needs full control of it, then they would need to provide the background. Even in Unreal, what we would typically do is if we're getting something from the marketplace, we would purchase it and then customize it. If a client needs full control of it, they need to purchase it and then we work it out from there. And I know there's other legal things that I'm sure I'm not covering. I haven't had to deal with it personally, but I know that we have absolutely, it's come up a few times. So it just really depends on what their needs are. We have clients that don't necessarily need full licensing agreements to it. And others that have. So it just depends, again, depends on the situation.
Yeah, good question, Carol. Good question. All right, Lisa, I'm gonna spotlight you so everybody can see you and go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you. We at UCF, we realize we're behind on this, but we're moving forward, and I'll be contacting all 3 studios and Advent Health after today's seminar. Thank you so much, Film Florida, for hosting this. It has been difficult to get all of the different parties in our bureaucracy together in one room to come to some agreement about space and resources and so forth. But we're moving in that direction. In the last meeting that we had, some faculty member piped up, just so you know what I'm dealing with, and said, I've heard over in Europe that they've discovered that these virtual studios aren't flexible enough and they're dismantling all of them because they don't do what everybody claimed that they did. Can you tell me how I would respond to that claim, which has not been substantiated?
That sounds off to me, but I think they're incredibly flexible. I think it's the exact opposite. The whole idea of not having to pick up a production company and move from spot to spot to spot is the ultimate inflexibility. We did an event here about a month ago where we had 30 people in the room, and we did 3 set changes in real time within about 7 minutes, of downtime to recalibrate lenses, cameras, and get the tags in place. So, I mean, there may be some difficulties in flexibility, but they are probably more related to the production aspect of the equation as opposed to the Unreal or the virtual or whatever technology that they're using. So we're still pretty new at this, but I find that to be an odd statement. And on a more important night, go Knights, charge on. I'm an alum.
Lisa, I feel like my response would be like, oh, can you show me where you read that?
Right.
Like, please, for my knowledge, not in a sassy way. I mean, it probably would come out that way, but like for my knowledge, please show me where you read that. Because yeah, I kind of agree.
Yeah, And Lisa, I have a research study that shows otherwise, that it just show the data. I can help you with that.
Excellent.
Yeah,
All right,
and Lisa, I'd invite you to just, I mean, I'm sure, Lindsay would be happy to host you as well. Just come down and come play. We would invite you to just come play, and we'll do some examples. And in fact, we've done other work for UCF in the past for the College of Business, and we've already got plates from the College of Business. And, we've got some plates, exteriors in front of the library, in front of the reflecting pond and things like that. And come experience it, come play.
The market's expected to grow to $5 billion by 2027. I mean,
yeah, I totally embrace this, and am working as hard and as quickly as I can within the bureaucracy to move it forward. So just as a parting thing for you guys, because at UCF, it's notorious for the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. Would you please do me the favor of, if any other department at UCF contacts you about this, like news and marketing, or the College of Arts and Humanities, or anybody else at UCF, can you please tell me, because they won't let me know they're talking to you. And again, I just want to thank you all for being here, what you do for our students, and thank Film Florida for having this today.
Thank you so much, Lisa. All right. Yes. All right. A question from the chat. It's kind of a long one. I want to know about the basic difference between a real set or physics set and a virtual production. In the context of education, is virtual production simulation needed before the user tries the actual virtual production? For example, if I try a virtual camera in VR, is there a difference between a camera on a real set and one in a virtual production? In this case, such as constraints or things that cannot be done on a real set. Andrea, you were shaking your head. You want to grab this one first?
Yeah, there's a lot there. So I'll just answer what I feel like I'm taking away from that, and then anyone else, please jump in on that. So it's not about the difference. It's about making sure that your cameras and your practical setup is synced to your cameras in your Unreal setup, and making sure that the frame rates are set properly, and making sure that everything matches. Same with the lighting. You want your lighting in the virtual elements to match your practical lighting as well. So I think that could have been what you were asking. And
then Steve, I'm gonna ask you kind of, I don't know if this is actually included in that, or if this, but talk about the physical props on set versus a virtual prop on set.
Steve, we lost you.
Oh, we don't have your audio, Steve. Did we lose your? Okay, we're going to come back to that question. Lindsay, I'm going to ask you the next question, and then we'll come back to Steve about props. Are there any special rules regarding layout of virtual production, maybe like how many lights, what the layout of the lights is, etc.?
There aren't any rules per se. I feel like we're writing the rules ourselves, right? Daily. It really, I think, depending on the shots that you need. So is the question maybe how big the volume or the LED wall or the set needs to be? It really depends on your shots. We have this big one that's in my background in our stage 1. We also have a smaller one in our stage 2 that works really well for certain things, but you can't get those big wide shots on it. So it all just depends on that. It's all very flexible. So there's no set number of anything needed, really.
Okay. Well, for lighting specifically too, so the ceiling panels are excellent for reflection-based lighting, so that when you have a car or something like that, you get the natural reflections. But we'll also move our ceiling panels out of the way or remove them completely and put in practical lighting. So if you're filming a reality show and you need that dramatic lighting on each person and you need that to change, practical lighting is still very important.
Good. Steve, I think we have you back. So you want to take on?
Yeah, I think so. I think my battery on my wireless died over there, the receiver. I apologize. We have battery problems today.
The mannequin's fault.
Yeah.
It is. Slater, I mean, he is trouble sometimes. I think I think, and forgive me, I was kind of preoccupied with my audio if this is a repeat. I think that a lot of times what you really have to kind of consider is that the mix of practical elements that match the virtual element is pretty critical. And that's where a lot of things get sold. Things that are in the foreground in front of the lens between, the subject and the camera lens, along with the background, which was the gag that we did with the brick wall over there a moment ago when I walked behind it. It provides depth, it provides some realism to the scene. So I think that's an important piece of the puzzle to kind of sell it. I think the other question that the person was asking is, how can we do all of this before we get into, doing actual virtual production? Well, the good news is that you can simulate a lot of this stuff in Unreal, including the camera, including movement, including even metahumans that you can buy for next to nothing on the marketplace. Just you can kind of see how it looks and how it feels before you go down that road. So that's another component of the equation. But as far as the syncing, Andrew's absolutely right. You have to sync the physical camera with the set as well as the virtual camera, and that's done with tags and things like that, so that when you move this camera around, that it tracks cleanly with the background. A lot of people think, well, in the LED wall, you don't have to do that. Yeah, you do, because they're still changing their perspective. In the green screen world, it's critical because, the whole background is being redrawn in real time, as we move around. So if Mark follows me way over here, that entire background is being redrawn in real time. But that's true in an LED wall as well, because if you go around a bend, all of a sudden something that was like this, that had depth, and you turn it, there's no depth there. It has to be drawn. So all of that is a function of calibrating your camera, your tracking system, and Unreal so that it all plays together nicely, which is, I'll say it's fun.
Sure, fun. Another question from our chat. We'll go around the grid. Lindsey, we'll start with you. What are your most common jobs? In industrial, commercials, music videos? What do you, narrative movies? What do you do? What do you guys do most?
Yeah, here in Orlando, we do mostly commercials. In Nashville, we've done a lot of music videos. We have done music videos here. Nashville gets a lot of music videos, also lots of commercials. And I believe part of a feature, Vegas has seen the majority of our feature work, one of which was a huge driving scene section of a film with Nicolas Cage that's coming out. And that's actually a perfect case study for virtual production. They filmed 60% of that film in 5 weeks on location in the summer in Vegas. And then 40% of the film in 5 days on our stage. And it's just a perfect case study for, again, going back to what Andrea said about driving scenes too, with the reflections and things. But commercials here, Tampa gets a mix of everything. And then we all do events as well. So kind of anything.
Yeah. Andrea, how about you?
So we did 2 music videos last week. Music videos is big, especially with us being in South Florida as well. Commercials are very, very common. Just wrapped another reality series. So you name it, events, things like that. We haven't been big into the film community side of things. We'll do, short films, but nothing significant on a large scale like that.
Yeah, and Steve, I know you guys are just getting started, but what do you foresee your market being?
Yeah, well, we're seeing, we're just getting started. So I don't want to make it sound like we've been doing a whole bunch of virtual production work, because we haven't yet. We literally just launched about a month ago. But I'll use this as an opportunity to plug what we're looking for. We want to do music videos, we want to do commercials, we want to do corporate stuff, and we'd love to do some work in the nonprofit charity space. And to that end, if I can be so bold as to use this as an opportunity to plug, we are looking to co-sponsor things with people so that we can build our reel. I'll be blunt. We need to show what we can do with this space, this facility. And we are actively looking for projects. So if somebody's got a project that they're thinking about it, maybe they don't quite have the budget for it, pitch us.
Great, great. Lindsay, before we get to your plug, I do have one other question. And I'm putting you on the spot because I didn't tell you this one was coming. But you're a production person by trade. Talk about the pushback that some of the traditionalists give that say virtual production is taking jobs away from people that work in the field and those type of things. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, ultimately, my answer to that is really not. It's a learning curve, absolutely. There are always going to be situations where on-set filming makes more sense, always. And I don't think anybody in the industry would say otherwise. Even if you film in a virtual stage, technically, depending on the project, you could still need a locations manager. You could still need a location scout. If you're going out and finding things, you could still need all of that. What you might not need is the permitting and the police and the things that I know all too well that go into certain things, which really just makes everybody's life a bit easier, but you still need the production jobs that are on any traditional set for the most part. I think I'll just leave it at that.
Good, good. All right, Lori, we're going to have you be our last question from the audience. So if you want to turn your camera on, I can spotlight you, but go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
I'm going to leave my video off.
Okay.
I was watching some show. I don't know, I watch a million shows, but to what Lindsay's point, you still need a location person, because I saw like where they were filming a background for a virtual set, and they had like a 360 cameras on like a surfboard in the middle of the water. So like Lindsay said, locations, although it may not be as much, it's not going away. But things like needing permitting, all the pain in the ass shit, excuse me, is going to go away, and location scouts are still going to need to scout for the locations for the virtual backgrounds if they want it to be exclusive or specific or whatever. So
yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Andrea, you look like you got something to say.
I do, because I want to stress that I don't think that this is taking away anything. In fact, I think it's only adding. And I see in the chat about construction of it taking construction away. I mean, we're just wrapping on a set that we had invested around $80,000 to $100,000 in the construction of the practical set in front of the virtual element. So that's not going away. Really, it's a co-pilot to the other the new emerging artists into the space. Producers, stay true to your craft. The virtual production community still needs your craft. You still need the fundamentals in virtual production. It's just another tool. It's not taking away, it's only adding.
Yeah, I mean, to that comment, the art department is one of the most critical on our sets. If the art department doesn't match the virtual art department, if there's not conversation, then things can go wrong. It is truly one of the most important things. So I definitely agree with Andrea.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly, it's a little bit disruptive, like every technology change has been disruptive. I mean, if 30 years ago, the only thing on a film set that you knew how to do was to load film into a camera, and you didn't bother to learn anything else, you're in trouble. So yeah, there's some adaptation that needs to happen from crewing positions and things like that. But I would agree that this is just another iteration of a technological change that requires a rethink in some departments. You still need a production designer, you still need a producer, director, you need actors, you need makeup, you need audio, you need gaffer, you need a DP, you need an AC, you need grip, you need all of that stuff still. None of that stuff went away. Maybe a little bit of location stuff has changed a little bit because it's all being done on a virtual computer now.
And
Perfect.
mannequins.
Mannequins. We use more mannequins now. So we're gonna end it there, but Lindsay, before we go, everybody, please don't drop off. Lindsay, I want to make sure that you plug anything you need to, website, phone numbers, email addresses, anything you want to give out so people can get in touch. And then if you could put that in the chat box as well, go ahead.
Sure. So our website is view.network. And then we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, we're pretty much anywhere you want to look for us. And I will shoot my email address. It's just lindsey.sandrin@viewstudio.com is my email. And then if you want to call me, here's my cell phone number.
There you go. Andrea, how about you guys? Brandstar.
So some new stuff that's coming. I can't be exactly specific until the press is launched around this, but coming in June, we will have one of the largest stages up in Miami. We have a multi-year agreement with one of the biggest global production companies. And so that will be super exciting for us and for everybody. We're looking for more talent to join the team to, come and service the productions there. We're also, we also have an acquisition in the Midwest with the Batman set virtual production side of things. So there's a lot of really fun things happening. Follow us, brandstarstudios.com is our website. And then I'll put all my details in the chat as well.
And when Brandstar is ready to do all those big announcements, you can find their stuff on social media, or we will be sure and be plugging that as well, since they are a member of Film Florida, which is awesome. Steve, you plugged a little bit, but any websites, social media, anything you want to give out?
Yeah, you can find us greenslatestudios.com, info@greenslatestudios.com. I think somebody's putting that in the chat box right now. And of course, we're on Facebook and Instagram as well. And if you have even a remote interest in seeing how it's done, just drop us a line. And I think I like Lindsay's word, schedule a play date. Or was that it? I think it was Andrea said that actually. A play date.
I love play
Let's have a
dates.
play date. I like that word. I'm going to steal that.
I love that. Love that. All right, so that's going to wrap up another edition of Film Florida Friday. Thanks to Lindsay, Andrea, Steve, and Caleb. I saw Advent Health stuff in the chat box as well for being with us, and thank you all for joining us today. I also want to thank Katie Collins for helping me wrangle and prepare for Film Florida Friday each month. We're going to be back next month with another edition of Film Florida Friday. We put the registration link in the chat box. We'll also be doing email blasts and social media posts. I want to thank all of our Film Florida members for their continued support. I mention this every month, but it continues to be important. If you're not a member of Film Florida, we hope you'll consider joining the organization at filmflorida.org. We are funded entirely by our members, so our ability to do pretty much anything is dependent on the support we receive from our members. You can also make a donation of $20.23 for our 2023 fundraising campaign. You can find that in the chat box as well as on our website. Keep up with everything we're doing on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Make sure you check out the Film Florida podcast. Thanks again for being here. Have a great day, and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers that are out there celebrating this weekend. Thanks, everybody.
Can I say one thing before we leave, John?
Please.
For those of you who are not members of Film Florida, I want to do a shout out to John and all the volunteers, because they braved the legislative effort in Tallahassee this year. Thank you for saving the sales tax exemption. It was on the chopping block, and you guys did yeoman's work. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do for the film and production community in Florida.
I appreciate that, Steve. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Have a great weekend.
Bye, everybody.